I am the afternoon speaker. I'm Pat Hunter, and I live in Vallejo, California. So it's still morning here in California. We're amongst the fires, and so the internet is in and out. So I just asked Celeste, Dr. Celeste, if I fade out to start playing Marvin Gaye. So thank you to everyone who tuned in this morning. I'd like to thank Reverend LaKesha Womack for the invitation. So today I've been tasked with a wonderful task and something close to my heart to vote. And then we ask people to vote like it matters. Your voice matters. So here in the California Conference, I am the appointed director for the California Conference Director of a voters registration. But here it's more than voters registration. We need to share the education piece in regards to why folks avoid voting, and then have them be engaged and empowered so that they will actually register to vote. What we have been doing, and I attend Cal Temple Amy Zion Church. For the last few years, we, the lay, have been hosting lunch and learn. And we've been sharing that task with the Vallejo NAACP as a host with us. And what we would do is about 90% of our church vote by mail. So following our worship service, on a certain Sunday, as it was calendar, we go into the fellowship hall, we dine, have a good time with fellowship, and then we would open up our voters' guide. And by being nonpartisan, we would do the pros and cons for the measures and the propositions. We would speak candidly about what's going on in our area. We've also invited candidates for our local government to come and share with us, and we would call it a lunch and learn. We would include our millennials and our youth because some of our seniors would like to change their status to vote so that they would be able to receive their guides at home. So the millennials and youth were involved, our adults and our seniors would come together and have a wonderful time. Those who would like to complete their ballots would give them to our great secretary, Sister Linda Daniels. And not only would she just go beyond going to the post office with their mail-in ballots, go directly to the registrar's office to make sure that the ballots would be counted. My shirt all the time, register to vote, your voice matters, is because we want to make sure that everyone understands, well, we're out in the community, and it's not just a seasonal thing. Here in California, in the California Conference, as the director, we have one person appointed in each church like a class leader, but we call them our cheerleaders. And not only is it voters registration and education, also it's Census 2020, because we know how important the census is this year. And we have a representative of each church that we meet once a month where we send information out when we have different meetings at the church sites, whether it's a missionary meeting, a Christian education meeting. We have a representative that places information because in different areas, different cities, the measures and the propositions are different. But our hope is that everyone is educated so that they know to have a decent conversation. And what we ask is that once that you turn in your ballot, that you speak to your youth as well as your family members. We want to encourage everyone to vote, especially this year with what's going on with the crisis in the United States. So we have gone out. What makes us different? We are tasked here in the vote, register to vote team. We go out to the middle schools and high schools. We talk about elections, even in the elementary school, because that's where I first held my office in the fourth grade. We were learning to vote. And so it's our children to vote. You start voting in elementary school, you vote in middle school for your class officers, you go to high school and vote, and even in college you're voting. So we want to continue that. So every chance we get, we go into the schools and especially the BSUs, the Black Student Unions, and speak about voting, voters education, the right to vote. At the church site and even at the school site, when kids share that their birthdays are coming, they're going to turn 18, they get that voters, that hard copy of the voters the registration, the voters registration. But nowadays, it's so nice to see the millennials say, "Hey, can we go to the site on and register to vote there?" And then also we encourage folks to check their voting status to make sure that they are still registered to vote, that their voting desire, whether it be Democrat, Republican, or Independent, that they're still listed as that status. We had last year here in my area, there was something going on with the DMV, and people received ballots that said that they weren't Democrat or Republican, that they were turned into an independent. So we asked them to educate themselves, show them how to go in and check and make sure that your status, because that's very important as well. We share with the youth at the schools about the electoral vote versus the popular vote. And that's why we want everyone to be involved and register. We have a fine time at the high schools because they're very energetic. We want to make sure that they know that their vote counts. There's a reason to vote because sometimes their older siblings will say our vote doesn't count. We want to make sure that the younger ones, as the word says, the young ones will lead, that they can go home and share with their parents the reason that they should be voting, share with their college age students. Also, our college age students that leave California and go to our HBCUs, we make sure that that there's an education piece for them, that they can vote by mail, that they're still voting here in California, and our parents are on the ball with that. We partner with the NAACP, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, the Community Democratic Club, caravans where we've gone out in the neighborhoods and shared the Census 2020 and along with the voters registration and education. So we're trying to touch as many people as many times as we can, registering them to vote, but not only registering them to vote, to educate them why they want to vote. We want to educate, we want to mobilize, we want to energize. We just want to motivate people here to vote on what's going on in our United States. And then there's the down ballot, the local vote. That's very important. Voting for a president, you need to be encouraged to do the down vote, where you're voting in your local government. Because needless to say, your local government becomes your higher government, your assembly people, your senators. As we can see, Kamala Harris came out of the city of Oakland, which is in the Bay City district where I reside. And we're happy to see that she's made that run. So we visually see that here in the Bay Area. We're very active. We're out and about in regards to registering to vote. So again, we in each Zion church here in the Western region in the California Conference, we are encouraged to, we're working with Bishop Crenshaw and the presiding elders with the Project 100, which is just confirmation for us that we're doing the correct thing. And we're so glad to see so many people on the line on the Fridays and Sunday mornings with the Project 100. We've been doing videos with our youth to get out to publish in regards to getting out to vote, to encourage and motivate them so that they feel a part of the voting. So it's awesome to see that Zion is doing our part, not only just in the Western region, but in all regions with that Project 100. And that's very, very important. I'd like to ask if there's any questions at this time, or I'll just continue on with the next part of this section. So Dr. Gillespie, any questions? So I'll go on. We've been going out to different cities. We have 9 churches. And again, in each church, we have different, like when we have the men of Zion, we couple up and partner up with different ministries in the church. We have the SAGE, our seniors advancing for God's excellence, who are also towing the line in regards to voters' education, and their voice matters. The seniors have spoken at Kyle's Temple to the millennials and youth in regards to um, the earlier times in voting, the hard times, the history of voting, 55-year anniversary in regards to women voting. So we are doing our part. The history of voting is very important. My grandparents are from, our family's from Savannah, Georgia. It's ingrained in us since we were kids. My parents, working class, middle class, how it was an honor for us to be able to vote. So we are encouraging our youth to get involved, canvassing, to know why we're out there marching for the right to vote. And not just the right to vote, it's just not saying that I'm going to vote, that we're going to get up and take souls to the polls, is what it was called during our last voting. But now we are doing more than that. We're going to be voting by mail here in California. Where they have different, the voting centers are going to be less. And so we have partnered with the NAACP, and we will be taking our ballots directly to the registrar's office to be counted. We want to make sure that we've educated folks that their vote counts and that their vote will be counted at the registrar's office. So I'm glad to take any questions at this time. Dr. Celeste, are you available? Well, I'll speak a bit in regards to the different Black organizations here in the Bay Area that are joining together for the cause of voter registration education. We have the strong backbone of the NAACP. We also have the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. We have the D9, the fraternity. And it's so awesome to see all of us coming together for one cause, and that cause is to register to vote and to educate our youth, our adults, and our seniors to vote and what they're voting on, the pros and cons in regards to the measures and the propositions. And again, I'll ask if there are any questions. I Dickinson, what do you say to the young person who doesn't think that their vote matters and tired of the history? Well, their vote does matter. So we encourage them when we speak about the Sojourner Truth, when we talk about the Harriet Tubmans that they have read about in history, about Frederick Douglass. We talk about John Lewis. We talk about that information. And then what we also talk about the issues in Vallejo, how that when you want to see change, you have to be part of that change. And part of that change is voting, and voting for the right people in office. You build relationships with those youth or young adults or adults. And you just don't say it one time, you have to come back and have conversations. You have to be willing to be that cheerleader or that class leader, that when you register someone to vote or have that conversation, that you go back and make sure that they're clear the topic that we talked about in voting. Invite them when you're going out, make sure that they feel like they're a part of, encourage them to invite other folks that are around them. They're thinking that their vote doesn't count. It's an education piece, and we have to be sincere. We have to be sincere and transparent. Ask questions, be prepared to answer the tough questions. It may not be what they want to hear, but we want to encourage them and follow them all the way to November 3rd. Also, here in California, we are asking folks to vote early, because the early vote is what's going to count. So October 31st is early voting here in California. I'm not sure in your areas. And I understand through a phone conversation, I am the Western Regional Director. We had our meeting, and just different areas in the West do not have early voting. So we have early voting here, and we'll be asking and encouraging our people, and we will be doing car caravans for those who want to vote. So we are encouraging people, because of the COVID season, to vote by mail. and ask, and once they complete that, they can contact us, and we will take their voting to the registrar's office. So it's not always about the red, white, and blue. We want you to get your blue and black pens and fill out that the voter tally, the voter ballot, and we want you to be about the things and ask questions. Ask your leaders in the church. We encourage all leaders in the church to be available to know what's going on in your area. We ask the pastors to speak on Sundays, share a little bit about the voting experience, share about the Freedom Church and what we mean, share with them what how much their their casting their vote means. We want everybody to be safe because it is COVID season, and we do understand that in some areas it's a deterrent. We understand that people have been taken off the rolls. We're encouraging people to find out what their voting status is and get it corrected because your vote does matter. Your voice does matter. And it's time to stand up. And I believe that the Amy Zion Church is doing an outstanding job again with the Project 100, bringing awareness, going down into rural areas where people may say that our vote doesn't count. Every vote counts. And it's going to have to count to change the White House this voting season. Are there any other questions? And here in California, our ballots will be dropping early. The vote by mail ballots will be dropping early. So they're sharing with us it'll be September 15th. So if you're in an area, please contact your voters registrar's office. That's what they're there for, to ask any questions that you may have. Contact your church leaders, your pastors, if you should have any questions in regards to voting. I'm sure they will direct you to someone on your team because looking on Friday, there's a number of people that are involved, that are team leaders, or with Project 100. So we're encouraging everyone to get in touch with your presiding elder because the presiding elders are also holding up. Hannah Broom is one of the leads on the Project 100. So I encourage you all to reach out, to get involved. Everyone needs involved. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us to get out the vote and to make sure that Zion votes 100% for Project 100. We want to have that perfect report card, and they're asking for it. So be looking out for the wonderful from Project 100, the great information that's coming out from Project 100. And do your part. Everyone has a part to play. If you're a leader in the church, you should be encouraging your members to vote and to take it outside of the walls of the church. We have family members that don't attend church, but we still can educate. Our family is 3 generations. My mom would sit with me and my sons and talk about voters registration. We've been knowing about voting. I've been knowing about voting since my grandparents. It's something that we need to hand down as a tool of love to our youth, our children. Are there any other questions? Project 100, Sister Dickinson, is an initiative that's started by that Bishop Crenshaw, and it's for we would like for 100% turnout voting for Amy Zion Church. So the presiding elder council has gotten together and they are leading the charge. So information will go out. There's videos, information about voting. They're calling to see do we have people registered, that we have 100% registered to vote in the church. And then information pieces will be going out each week in regards to casting your vote. So I'm hoping I'm doing it justice because we've only had 3 meetings. But again, it's an empowerment tool to give to us as lay people and clergy to be able to share correct information, to bring awareness to the church. And we would like for 100% of the Amy Zion Church to be voting And then it will overspill into the community to go out and share it. Just don't let Project 100 be the best kept secret within the walls of the church, that you'll be able to have tools to go outside of the church and share in your community. Any other questions? This is a different format for me. I like it. Thank you. So glad to be here this morning. And again, I encourage you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a Women League of Voters, again, Democratic Club, the NAACP, National League of Voters that we could join with, because there is power in numbers. Thank you. Any other questions? So I encourage leaders, even though they were doing e-learning. Yesterday, I spoke with one of the schools, invited me and youth at their school. So I've encouraged folks to contact their local schools and see if you can be added into the e-learning and take 10 or 15 minutes with classrooms to speak on, in the senior classes, to speak on registering to vote, to share the possibilities of them that are 17 for early voter registration, and then be part of the class and be able to come back and share voters education, how important that is. Along with their young people, they need to know about Census 2020 and what's going on with that, ability of the monies that need to be received, so they can go home and share with their parents and ask, have you filled out your census? It starts young. We need to start it young. Get into the schools and speak to our juniors and seniors in high school who should be knowing information about voting. It's our responsibility to encourage and empower our youth. Again, so in the California Conference, we have 9 churches on the Bay Cities District and about 14 churches on the Central Valley District. And there's one person that is appointed within each church, like a class leader, but they're the voters, education, and registration cheerleader. And when there's church meetings, when they're having meetings now via Zoom, that they take a small amount of time as a commercial to share information about voting in their areas. So whether it be a women's ministry meeting, missionary meeting, again, the information needs to be repeated over and over and over again to get out to vote. I'm not sure how it looks in other areas, but here in Vallejo, in the Bay Cities District, our NAACP is housed right on our church grounds. So we have a great opportunity that we are commingled with the church, and we have a great opportunity. We have about 90% of our church is vote by mail, and we will be having a lunch and learn, but it will be done through Zoom. So you bring your own bag, and we'll be going through the vote by mail voter guide, and we'll be tearing apart those measures and propositions. We'll be speaking about the candidates who are running for office, the best candidates, not only up ballot, but we're very concerned about the local government as well. And I'm open to take any other additional questions. So the answer is always that we need to register folks to vote, follow up with them like discipleship to make sure that they get out to vote or they fill in their vote by mail ballots. We want people during the COVID season, so however it looks in your area, we want to encourage the AME Zion Church to do our part and partner with the NAACP and get out and vote. get out and vote, register to vote, and be that catalyst to encourage folks to vote and educate them on what they're voting.